Good evening, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's the 10th. It's October 10th of 2020. I'm excited to say it's 10/10/2020. That won't ever happen again. And we have an amazing group of artists here today for our Maafa experience. Part 3 artist talk. If you don't know, we've done 2 of these before. This is our third, and we will be having a culminating discussion. But today is the third, and so we want to get into the artists that we have here today. So as we do at Ashe, we want to open with a land acknowledgement. So I'm gonna bring that video up for everyone. Just 1 second. Thank you all for bearing with us. So next, we're just going to give a little preview for folks who haven't gotten a chance to see the amazing virtual exhibit that we're, you know, these amazing artists contributed to. And as we said, we've had 2 other artist talks. And so just wanted to show you all the new platform that we've seen and that we have had the amazing opportunity to learn how to build community with and through. So we're gonna pull that up now. What a wonderful introduction video. You know, beautiful, and it's restarting. But so it is with that I am so very excited to be able to introduce our guest curator, as you all saw in the video, Gason Ayisyin. Gason Ayisyin
Yes,
is a
yes.
New Orleans-based photographer who immigrated to the United States as a young child from Haiti. Throughout his upbringing, Gaston's daily experiences were the sounds of drums, the calls of ancestral spirits, the exaltation of dance, the tastes and smells of traditional Haitian foods, and the sights of healing folk medicine. Today, he is informed through a bicultural experience where modernity and custom converge into a unique worldview that values innovation yet cherishes tradition. Gaston's work embodies the gratitude he feels for his childhood experiences and the importance of culture as an anchor of fortitude throughout one's life. He sees cultural learning as a lifelong practice that cultivates different levels of understanding and changes shade with each generation. Gason Ayisyin.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the third artist talk for the Maafa experience. I am honored to be able to curate this year's first virtual exhibit. When I spoke with Karel Sloane-Boekbinder as well as Wood, trying to figure out how to move forward in making this happen, especially on the heels of the pandemic, um, it was um, it was an undertaking as far as trying to figure out how to bring people together as well as be able to provide that experience. And of course, with COVID, it wasn't simply as far as being able to catch some virus, but it was also about the social unrest that was taking place as well. So now you have to deal with the stress of the reality of the world that we've been living in and continue to live in and trying to find a way to move forward. So for me, in thinking about what to do and what to say, especially when you're trying to highlight something beautiful and also give thanks to the ancestors, but deal with the severity of what's taking place with people of African descent in the US, but also globally. When I was thinking about COVID and thinking about my alpha, the one parallel I saw was how the coronavirus as a pandemic and the pandemic of white supremacy came together. So to me, I saw white supremacy was attacking people of African descent the same way with the same severity and impunity. So I wanted to take away the thought of this constant trauma and really try to focus on healing. So what I wanted to do is trying to find ways that we could all come together and have the same of a healing experience, not only in the way we do as far as in Congo Square, coming into the circles, listening to the drums, the singers, and the artists, but also coming to the water and finding that peace, being able to reflect. So this year, one of the things I wanted to do when it came to um, the the artist statement, I wanted all those who want to take part to just really think about certain key items, which we will be going into detail later on today. And that would, the first one would be, is healing possible, especially in light of everything that's taking place? When you're being traumatized, when you're being brutalized, you're seeing so much on social media. And how do you overcome that? How you have peace, being able to go sleep, talk to your kids, and still be able to just find that peace within your day-to-day life without constantly being brutalized from what you're seeing on television news, from the White House to your home, and thinking about the different ways to take time to heal. So for me, this exhibit was about exploring different methods and finding the diverse ways of healing and being able to still come together, whether we're at the Maafa in the circle or at home, or whether you're going to be with a counselor, or just finding your way to find that peace through this trauma. So I thank all the artists for taking part of it, sending the work. Everyone who partake, I believe, understood the message, and their work to me really spoke to it. And I appreciate everyone for taking part of that. And thank you.
And that is a perfect segue into our next portion, which is the introduction for the amazing artists that we have with us today. So I'm gonna go each of you, and then we'll do what they tell us to do at graduations that no one ever listens to. Hold your applause till the end, and we'll do a big round of applause and cheer for everyone. So first up, we have Itshanapa Mabele. Dale, also known as Dale Chambers, is a visual artist and creative consultant. Her visual art practice is a multimedia exploration in genealogy, women's narratives, and social art. She has received numerous awards and fellowships throughout the United States. As a homeschooling teaching artist, she has traveled internationally, implementing lesson plans to enhance and motivate intergenerational learning environments. Itshanapa Mabele also practices Reiki and other movement and healing modalities. Reiki is a Japanese form of stress reduction and energy renewal support. Reiki uses light energy and hand placement to generate energy to the intended subject. A general form of laying hands is a cross-cultural practice found in many religions, traditions, and spiritual groups around the world. In this series of work, Itshanapa Mabele is interested in all energy as healing. Despite challenges, imagination, and place, healing happens by choice. We choose healing with each thought. Our next artist, Christine Bro. As a photographer working with digital images, her focus is to capture and document the culture of New Orleans, a unique lens through which to see the world. This vision is shaped in the struggles of the South rooted in slavery, Jim Crow laws, discrimination, social, economic, and environmental injustices. Many of the images presented here happened on a journey that landed her at the peak of the pandemic in Los Angeles during the state-ordered lockdown. These pictures depict some of the powerful protests and voices that emerged during this time with rise of the BLM movements. Their voices must be heard and acted upon to move forward and bring our democracy to a place that can be fully and fairly be realized for all. Our final artist, Karel Sloane-Boekbinder. Karel Sloane-Boekbinder is an award-winning, versatile artist with over 35 years artistic experience and 25 years teaching experience. Her disciplines include theater, writing, film and video, and visual art. Karel has performed nationally and internationally for stage, film, video, and radio, and worked locally in professional theater companies, including the Ache Cultural Arts Center, Southern Rep, Anthony Bean Community Theater, the Jefferson Performing Arts Society, and the American Theater Project. She is a SAG-eligible equity member candidate, represented by TAG Talent for Film and Television. As a visual artist, she has exhibited artwork across the U.S. and completed outdoor murals locally for the Lakeshore Property Owners Association, 2 8-foot by 11-foot murals at the intersections of Canal Boulevard, Robert E. Lee, and Lakeshore Drive, and 48 murals as part of the New Orleans Street Gallery, affectionately known as the Utility Box Project, coordinated by cvunola.org. She is a 2003 magna cum laude Loyola graduate. Her undergraduate research thesis, Researching Creativity, Comparing Physiological Processes of Art and Language, was awarded the American Art Therapy Association Research Committee Award in 2004. She graduated with a 4.0 from Tulane University's MLA program in 2009. Her interdisciplinary master's thesis, The Physiology of Creative Expression, Research and Practical Applications, is available through Lambert Academic Publishing. And now, a huge round of applause for all of the amazing artists that we have on tonight. And I will now hand it over to Gason to get into our amazing interview and talkback that we have for everyone tonight.
Thank you very much, Morgan Melinda. I do appreciate your assistance, your technology, coordination, and everything you are doing for us this evening. Welcome everyone to the third Artist Talk. And I want to my first question will go to Christine Bro. And my question for tonight for you is it possible to heal? And why do you believe so?
I think I feel very strongly that it is possible to heal, and that healing takes a variety of different forms. It can be, and it encompasses a great deal. It can be physical. It actually is all those: physical, emotional, psychological, mental, and it can be expressed in a variety of different ways. Do I think it's possible? Yes, I absolutely think it's possible. And I think it's to a certain degree a choice, but it's also something that we as a society collectively need to take serious at this very, very critical moment in time in our history. We are, I think, at a point, a pivotal point in terms of divisiveness. And I, of course, am speaking for myself. And it's very important to me to see the country, to see people come together and heal, bond together, or find common linkage. I think it can be done, and I think it actually must be done. It would be equivalent to saying, can we heal COVID? I believe that we can heal COVID, right? And we've seen evidence of that insofar as the basic tools that are available to us. What we have as the, pretty much, if you will, common folk tools within our reach. And that would be basically masking and socially distancing. And that has played a tremendously significant role in our being able to heal. It's also behavioral, our behaviors, our motivation, our desire to want to do that, and how we respond to that particular challenge is underscored by how we behave and the responsibility that we take towards that, and the importance towards the emphasis that's given on that. Now, I say that in the context of the tremendous, what I see is inequity, injustice, racial division, and that also too stems from not only a horrific history that I believe that we need to overcome, but also it is behavioral. We're at a point right now similar to what we're experiencing or have experienced with the pandemic, that we have the potential as human beings to be able to change our behaviors and our attitudes. We can shape them, we can mold them, and we can do it by, I think, finding common ground, by finding ways in which we can meet up with one another. An example would be what we're doing right now. Art is an incredible expression. Healing can take place in a variety of different arenas. It can take place, it takes place as an individual, collectively, societally, and we can accomplish this in an attempt to overcome these inequities by changing our behavior and our beliefs and how we approach each other and how we find common links to solve some of these problems, as difficult and as challenging as it is and can be at times. I have to believe that. I mean, I'm on the side of being an optimist and feeling it is such an important issue that we really need to rise above it and overcome that. And, it's just a tremendous honor being here to be able to discuss these really relevant problems and issues with you. So that's what I would say.
I also want to piggyback off of one of the things you mentioned as far as healing is a choice. And you also mentioned COVID. And I guess from my point of view, you have not only the US government, you have countries all over the world are really working very hard to find a cure for COVID. But at the same time, when we're talking about the social unrest and the inequities, are they also just as invested in trying to heal society in other ways outside of just the COVID, as far as just dealing with inequalities of the society itself?
Oh yeah, I absolutely believe that. I mean, I think they're both, first of all, I think they're both paramount. I think they're critical. One is health, which is the health, our physical health, our health collectively as a whole, even though I'm clearly cognizant of the fact that the COVID has hit in an unprecedented and unequal way the Afro-American communities and communities of color. And that is the underlying one of the underlying reasons for that, I believe, is due to the inequities and lack of access to the medical care system. It's just not that easy. Plus you have, basic dietary concerns, maybe not having equal access to food or exercise. And those pre-existing conditions, I think, may have made, communities, poor communities and communities of color much more vulnerable. Not to say that COVID is obviously lethal and deadly, and we have to do everything in our power locally in New Orleans, as a country, nationally, and internationally to solve this problem, to solve this crisis. I mean, we were confronted with something which is truly unprecedented in our history. And I give great courage to those folks who've worked, which would be basically all of us, to work so hard to attempt to take those measures, to utilize those tools to move forward and at least curb the epidemic, being cognizant and mindful of our dear brothers and sisters and basically our humanity, because that's what's at stake. Now, because part of our ability to be able to cure, if you will, or deal with a COVID is behaviorally based, I think in terms of addressing the bias, prejudice, and tremendous, systemic, if you will, racial injustice in our country, it is also behaviorally based. We are very close to it here in New Orleans, Louisiana, and in the South. We see the vestiges of that inequality here, rooted in slavery. You may go to another part of the country and it may not be so obvious, but it still exists. And I think that it's critical. I mean, the divisions are, these divisions have really made, I think, generally society as a whole very much more vulnerable. And not only that, it's a function of our being able to change our behavior, to alter our attitudes, to embrace, one another. And the other thing is, I wanted to take a moment to express why this social injustice resonates and rings so loudly now. If we look at the events of Charlottesville, it's unprecedented in terms of the movement of white supremacy. I never in my lifetime actually thought that I would see anything like that. And it ills me greatly. It's repugnant to me to see behavior like that. That is behavior that can be changed. Well, let's put it like this. It's behavior that needs to be condemned. And never, ever rise to such deplorable abomination again. I think we really have to take a real hold on that. And it is in my opinion, absolutely condemnable, inexcusable and condemnable.
Thank you
So
very much.
they are linked. I mean, the good news is, or the hope is, that it can be changed. Mm-hmm. At least for generations, we can address what's going on in terms of the issues now and find ways of solving it within our generation, but also more importantly, as our children are growing up. We have a duty and a responsibility to be able to reach to them and do what we can to make sure that those bridges, are gapped between and a greater understanding, taking an active role in reaching out and understanding what the concerns and the issues are with the Afro-American community, and with other communities of color throughout the country. We have an opportunity here, if you will, in New Orleans, to be, physically closer to one another, to be able to, talk and address these issues. And I for one, feel very appreciative of that.
Thank you very much, Christine, bro. I'm going to have the same question with Itshanapa. Is it possible to heal? And why do you believe so?
Well, of course. And before I get into all of the reasons why I believe that healing is here and now, I just want to thank you. I want to thank Carol and Ashe Cultural Arts Center. And it's been great to listen to Christine. There's so many stories of healing. How would civilization be here if we haven't already chosen healing? Now that that's clear, I have ancestors from New Orleans. I have ancestors from Mississippi. I have ancestors who've lived and migrated for generations. They had a struggle. There's no way that they got through their life without a struggle. Okay. Technology has made it very easy for us to forget that struggle is not an intellectual pontification. Struggle is being in the midst of an issue and having to make the right choice. Struggle is trying to make ends meet, but literally not having anyone. Struggle is not understanding where you are or the culture around you. Struggle shows up in so many ways. It shows up in our health, in our mentality, in our general spirit wellness. But someone has been through it. Someone before us, and most likely someone now. And we can trust that no matter what it is that we're going through, that it too shall pass. Now, that's not blind faith. That's knowing that if we're committed to civilization continuing, that healing is a natural part of that. And then there's so many tools and so many avenues that we can take that's just for us to heal. For instance, some people who are rushing around town all day, they never get a moment to themselves. Maybe they stop exercising. Maybe they stop using their imagination. For those folks, I would suggest for them to begin journaling, to begin taking a moment of awareness and enjoying something around them and just jotting it down. Now, that sounds like silliness in the midst of being poor and Black in America. We obviously have more important things to do. But we have to pull from joy and we have to pull from nature to give us the tools or the discernment to make the choices that are going to impact not only our own lives, but those folks around us in a way that we're not begging or asking or even explaining things. If we're able to find a way to comfortably streamline our own imagination of what we want this world to be with our daily action, we won't even notice that we're healing. We'll just continue. We'll just continue being. And so for me, I'm a mother, I'm an artist. I enjoy finding different modalities of healing. One of the most impactful modalities for me was Touch for Health kinesiology. Touch for Health uses touch, physical touch from another human being to clear up issues in your lymphatic system. Your lymph nodes is where you store most of your inflammation. You can use direct touch to heal up your neurological issues. Maybe you're feeling down and you are already known to be maybe sometimes seasonally depressed. You can touch areas in your head where it naturally realigns your neurological tract. Let's say you already exercise and you're still going through financial issues or relationship issues. You can do direct touch and it will affect your muscular system. There's a lot of non-believers out there. There's a lot of people who have no faith. There's a lot of people who are living in confusion. There's a lot of people who do not know which way to turn or which choice to make. But we can feel the right choice for ourselves in our body. Do you all understand what I'm saying? So let's say the whole world is burning down. I have a joke that I tell one of my teenagers. I don't care if the house is falling down. Make sure your room is clean. That applies to our societal ills. That applies to our daily practice. That applies to our personal development. That applies to our collective issues. And it definitely applies to our world and global unrest. Before the pandemic, we were still in the midst of a pandemic. This is an ongoing struggle. We are a first world nation, and all of us who are complaining and whining about the small distractions have forgotten that we're a part of a global humanity. Half of my family is Cherokee and Congolese. The other half of my family is Black American, which means that they are Choctaw, African descent, and also have the history of having a rapist in our family. What power and patience it took for my family to survive that. Generational trauma, generational rape, generational, in the Bible, people believe in curses. I don't believe in curses, but the struggle that we've already survived is a map for us to heal now. And how dare us to not use that map, not only for our own lives, but the whole global network. My Congolese family in Haiti, they're the only fourth world nation in the Western Hemisphere. Okay? That's the same oppression that we have all through the entire globe. We can continue to focus on the supposed oppression, or we can look at how it is that civilization continues to heal despite the oppression. And there's been numerous ways. It shows up with nature. It shows up with the herbalism. It shows up with midwifery. It shows up in building small communities and transforming streets and blocks. This is happening all around the world, but we're not hearing this. Why? Because they're focused on the divisiveness. The healing is already happening. The air quality that occurred when the pandemic first hit and all of these major cities were shut down was a living miracle. Never in my lifetime had I seen such blue skies, and my garden was overabundant. But all of this overabundance, that's so powerful. So powerful. Now, how have we allowed ourselves to be distracted by the overabundance? It's not our faults. We are constantly being attacked by media. We're constantly being attacked by dinosaur belief systems. We're constantly being attacked by ill will, poverty. It's not our fault. But what is our fault is when we check in with our bodies and we make the choices that we know didn't sit right in our bodies. That's how we bring accountability to healing. Once we realize that in our bodies something doesn't feel comfortable, we have the choice to sit with that, breathe through that, own that, and then move forward with another choice. Then being accountable. Then you'll realize, hey, everyone makes mistakes every day. This is not worth me holding on to, because if I hold on to this negative behavioral pattern, it will create disease. So healing is possible. If healing wasn't possible, we wouldn't be able to have this conversation right now. And I'm just elated to be alive during this time, even though it seems as though the world is turning upside down. There's so many beautiful things growing and flourishing. There's more cooperative economics happening. There's more barter systems happening. There's more folks who are walking because they're tired of being in the house. They're being more technologically conscious because now they're forced to use the technology for their work. Whereas before it may have been seen as recreation or entertainment or, their favorite indulgence. Families are at home together, learning together. It's an amazing time. I've been homeschooling for 5 years, and now it is that I can have larger conversations with Black women who work and are entrepreneurs and are creating with their children who are at home, you know, with their feet in the grass, doing their art assignments or listening to Zoom in the park. It's an amazing time, and we can focus on those things. And I bet you this pandemic will heal. I bet you the social unrest will shift if we focus on those natural things.
Thank you very much, Itshanapa. I do appreciate that reply, the response. And the same question is going to go to Karel Sloane-Boekbinder. Is it possible to heal? And why do you believe so?
Good evening, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Akwai ton katayo. Ishmina an Carol. Tasejas bulalit. Kiad milafota. Those are languages from my ancestors. One of the most beautiful gifts that Ashe ever gave me was an understanding of how important ancestors are, and also that they are always, always trying to connect with us, whether we feel them or not. And for me, this is very important because I never really knew my father's half of the family at all. And it wasn't until the miracle of DNA science that I discovered first 4 years ago. So I've always known that I'm Irish. I've always known that I have some English heritage and some German. 4 years ago, I discovered that I am also Pakistani, a tiny bit Saudi Arabian Jewish. And as of Juneteenth of this year, I have confirmed that I am Native American, Mohegan from the Northeast. I'm not from New Orleans originally, I'm from Connecticut. And I say all of these things to point out that if we're community building, then we are bridge building the burned places, the scorched, left behind traces of collapse, mishap, and calamity. We're stitching back together the revisions for whatever it is that divides us or keeps us from being aligned. And part of that is ancestor discovery. A lot of the Maafa is about honoring ancestors, those who we are aware of in our own families and those that didn't make it here. One of the places we go on the Maafa walk every year is St. Augustine Church, to where the Tomb of the Unknown Slave is. And we go there to honor both the ones that lived that we didn't know about, but the ones that didn't make it in the voyage that would often take 6 weeks. And so, is healing possible? I believe that it is possible, but I also believe that we have to look at a lot of things that are damaged. There's a quote, a friend of mine is a fabulous artist. She's an actor and a director, and she just directed a play that was up online this week. Her name is Lakeisha Glover, and she posted this fabulous quote recently. When you find yourself in a new situation, everything unhealed in you will rise to the surface. And my response to that is, yes, broken people break things, healed people heal others. And once it rises to the surface, that's when the broken part can be healed. And that's what's happening right now. We've got broken stuff all over the place that is rising to the surface. And as much as that terrifies me, I'm a marcher, right? I'm terrified that if I go out, I might be picked up and brought somewhere and detained indefinitely and questioned, because legally, because the Constitution was amended at the moment, that is possible. Although chances are, if we were all marching, that wouldn't happen to me. It would happen to Gason and Itshanapa. They would be the ones that got picked up. And so, that is becoming exposed. All this stuff is coming to the surface. And the more it comes to the surface, the more we're going to be able to work on it and fix it. Until we see it, we cannot fix it. And there are some people that never knew things were damaged until the summer. I mean, they never knew the extent of the damage, right? Then there are people that have lived the damage all their lives, because I did the ancestral good evening. So that was good evening in Muslim language, because I have ancestors. my ancestry includes Christian, Muslim, Jewish, and Native American. And so we have to find a way for these things to come together. As a practicing Christian, I'm an Episcopalian. I go to St. Anna's Episcopal. I'm a choir member and a Sunday school teacher. Christianity, ever since its inception, has history of people that tried to take it and co-opt it. And that often was used against people of color, particularly indigenous people, right? And there's a huge, huge precedent. That's what the Crusades were all about. The Crusades were about Christianity decimating Muslim culture. And so we have to look at these things. We have to look at the history of them in order to unpack the damage. And it's only when we begin to unpack the damage that we are really going to heal. And I do believe it's possible. I'm a cautious optimist, but I also know that we have to be very brutally honest about what it is that happened, how the country was made, who benefited from that. Because I'm also a colonizer. My father's family was given a land grant by King George of England to colonize. Like, one part of my ancestors obliterated the other, right? And the only reason I found out about them was because of science. And they were trying to cover it up completely, right? I can't find the paper trail yet for the Mohegan people, and I might not ever do it. But I mean, I don't care, because I know now, right? And so I can speak about these things. I can hopefully bring light to them. And I can also say to others that it is possible to discover things if you want to, because I searched all my life. I have searched all my life ever since I was a small child to find out these things. And so it is possible. And I know Gason's on his own ancestor walk. He's been digging up his ancestors too, right? Like, that's been part of what you've been discovering over time. And I'm sure you found over time more and more people have come to the surface from your past. Yeah, so that's my long answer for your question.
I also want to, in addition to, I want to go back to what you're saying as far as we can't fix what we can't see. Now, I guess that depends on what side of the spectrum you're on. If you're the one that's being traumatized, you see it. It's ironic. I mean, everybody said they didn't realize how bad it was as far as being victimized or brutalized until they saw George Floyd or other things. So I guess the question would be, are those individuals who may not really want to see it, or they're comfortable with it, not try to even deal with the healing process, or even think that there's anything that needs healing, since they're not victimized. So how do you balance that?
Those people have to really look. I'll give you an example. Harry and Harriet Moore, they were civil rights activists.
Mm-hmm.
They were brutally murdered on Christmas Eve in their orchard in Florida. Or there's Rosewood in Florida also. There's the Black Wall Street that was in Oklahoma. You must look at those things, and you must listen, and just keep your mouth shut and listen while the person tells you about what happened to them. It is critical that we do this. We must hear each other, and we must sit and grieve. I cry all the time, especially when I see a new thing. I just got a thing on Facebook about all the children. There's like, not even all of the children. It was only 9 of them that were murdered in detention centers. One of them is a little baby named Wilmer, and I can't stop seeing him. He's a little baby, and they killed him. And this is what you have to do. You have to grieve with people who are, and you have to listen to them. If someone was hurting you, you would want them to hear you. If someone was killing your family, you would want them to hear you. That's what they're asking for you to do. They're asking for you to listen to them. And you have to do it. You have to. It doesn't feel good at all. It feels horrible. But you must do it so that we can heal. We as the people, our people of the United States, right? We have an amazing document that says all men are created equal, that says liberty and justice for all. It is our job as Americans to make that true, to make it mean something. They're not just words on paper. And yeah, the guys that wrote them didn't really understand when they were putting it on paper that it meant brown people too. They didn't want to claim that part of it. but that was on them. I can't speak for them. I can only speak for what those words say. Those words say liberty and justice for all, not just people who are white appearing, not just people who present as white, for all. I'm sorry, I'm very passionate about this because I can't speak enough about how critical it is for white appearing people to just sit and listen. Don't try to compare your trauma to someone else's. Don't try to say that you've hurt too, so they just have to get over it. The hurt that they've experienced is generations and generations of murder. I'm talking murder. Harry and Harriet Moore were murdered. And the only reason they didn't kill their children was because they went to grandma's house that night on Christmas Eve. Cynthia Westley, Denise McNair, Carol Robertson, and Addie Mae Collins were murdered on Easter in a church. Murdered. Okay, those are 4 little girls, right? That's what everybody calls them usually, not by their names. We have to say their names and remember they were murdered. Okay, and that was a common, people who say, oh, the good old days, the 50s. Yeah, the good old days, the 50s were because you didn't know that your neighbor's kid was being yanked out in the middle of the night and shot and murdered in front of their family as a deterrent so that those people wouldn't go vote or wouldn't speak out. When that's what was happening. You just had the luxury of not seeing it. And I am saying you must see it. You must sit. You must grieve with people that are grieving. And I say to you, you would want that. You would want someone to grieve with you if it was your son. You would want someone to grieve with you if it was your daughter. So grieve and then do something to fix it.
Ooh, that was very emotional. Thank you, Carol. Thank you. Ooh, allow me to send you a virtual hug and thank you for sharing that. That was very, all right. I'm trying to collect myself now. We do have someone in the Facebook world that left a message for us. And actually, he is a brother of mine. My brother, actually, Melisel Bien-Aimé. He says, "Hi, I don't understand all you are saying, but I'm glad to see my brother. I'm glad to see that you are watching and partaking with the Artist Talk with us. And thank you very much, Melisel." And now we're going to go to the second question of the evening. And this question is going to go back to Christine Bro. Question is, how can healing start?
I feel that it can start. It's starting right now for me. I think it starts with a conversation. It starts with not when you hear or sense that someone else is aggrieved or some harm is coming to them. We don't turn our back, but what we do is we reach out without fear, and we try to find out, what's going to understand, listen, as Carol was pointing out, it's having the sensitive ear. It's not turning away, but listening and taking it a step past that. For me, it's finding a common linkage, something, how I can relate, how I can reach out to them. I think healing, it can take many forms. It can be in art, it can be through communication, it can be through an activity, it can be through a communication, it can be psychologically understanding at a very deep, almost unconscious level that we are all connected to one another. And I think, as Carol was pointing out too, that when we connect with our ancestors, it tells us a story of how we all got to where we are, that we are here now, that we would not be here if we hadn't listened and taken those steps that were necessary to move us all together. being afraid of pain, being afraid or fearful, you kind of just have to put that aside. You know, in order for people to heal, at least I'm talking for myself, it's important. You see the issue, don't be afraid to listen, but to take the time to sit down and put fear aside, because I think we're living right now in, we could be so oppressed by our fear that we would become immobilized. And we don't want that to happen. You know, it's critical for us to make the kinds of changes and come together to put the fear and anxiety aside, given what we are facing tremendous challenges right now. And that's something that we can all do in terms of our personal relationships, in terms of how we communicate with one another. And I also thought it was beautiful. Listen to your body. You know, Ayisha, she said that. She made a very clear point of saying, if you listen to what's going on inside of you, or you take the time to connect to some part of your core during the day, that's going to tell you something about what's going on and what you can do to correct it. Is it something that is it physical? Do we need maybe more exercise? Do we need to eat differently? Do we need to adjust our attitude and how we see things to be able to get a clearer picture and to understand that we can? Through the clarity of the picture for me, when I see that, I see a vision of what it is and what it can be. And I try to move in such a way that that vision becomes closer. It approximates more. I can reach it. I can begin to touch it, to grab it, to incorporate it, to bring it inside. Healing begins internally, but it also is critical that we make those choices to begin to heal.
And one thing you mentioned as far as being able to relate, must you relate in order to be able to start the healing process? Or, I mean, because there are certain situations where you may not relate to that person's trauma or understand that person's world or whatever hurt they may be going through, whether it's cancer, COVID, or brutality. So I'm trying to figure out, must you relate in order to start?
No, I think that's a really good question. I think for me, it's two parts. I think listening and being open to be able to see the problem and to see the depth of the problem. In other words, when I hear somebody else's pain, I may not, and I may never know that experience, but what I can do is I can see and accept that they are in pain. And in that sense, reach out to them. In that sense, try to connect up and understand that they're sort of at a very base level, at a core level. We all experience pain. What caused that pain may be different. But if you're in pain, I'm also in pain. And I can hear that. And that is the base step for me to be able to step forward and understand what the issue or have a better, greater depth of understanding as to what caused that pain. And I think it's real interesting for me, you talk about trauma. I think all of us have experienced trauma, very different types of trauma. But I think most people have. I mean, we're being traumatized right now by the COVID. Traumatized in a way individually as well as collectively. It prevents us from reaching out, prevents us from basically, relating in the way that we used to. So registering that it can potentially be traumatic for me, much less for people who, Afro-American people, who are some potentially much more vulnerable and may also have less access to the resources that are so needed to be able to become healthful. that part I can relate. I feel for me, it's something that I want to try to understand. It's also a duty. I can choose to, but I think it's very important that we all do that, because healing is a collective. We can embrace and make this healing process, not only for us as individuals, but for all of us, and understand that we are all deeply connected to one another.
And you took some powerful protest images while you were out. I guess I'm not sure. I forgot exactly where you were. Thinking California. Some of the images that you took.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, did you notice, or how was that? Were they healing during the protests, or were individuals coming together outside of what was displayed on the television or the news?
No, it was amazing. I mean, in that sense, you know, it was, I guess what inspired me to go out was, we were in the middle of a mandate and a lockdown. And when at the early inception of the protests, you could begin to see that groups were coming together, and it was very, how can I say it? It seemed like there was a core group, truly the Black Lives Matter was the energy, the core to bringing this extraordinary thing to the forefront, to the surface. In other words, it's some of the issue that you were talking about of how can you begin to heal unless you understand the problem, right? That problem has been with us for a long period of time, but it's being recharacterized. For me, it was recharacterized or reconfigured for the particular period that we happen to be living through right now. So for me, I couldn't turn my back on it. It was something that I had to do, mandate or no mandate. I didn't know anybody, but I knew that this particular issue was so important. Probably coming from New Orleans, it was a subject, it was something that was dear to my heart. So I did the very best that I could. I took a mask. I socially distanced, but I did everything that I possibly could to be able to listen and to hear their pain, to hear the issue as it was unfolding. And it was truly remarkable and historically so important. I mean, it's alive and it's living now. It's it's played out all over the country. It's, and I was very familiar with Los Angeles. I went to school at UCLA. So I'm telling you that for the following reason, is that during that period of time, I never saw anything that was as powerful or as poignant or as pivotal in terms of people coming together from communities all over Southern California, right? It wasn't, there are a core, certainly in Los Angeles, but it sprouted up, if you will, these expressions, these tremendously powerful political expressions. And it involved, it was, to say that it was diverse, it was extremely diverse. There was, and I think it's somewhat reflected in the photographs, there was much more support from non-Afro-American communities, more than I had ever seen. They really got the issue, they got the message, and they mobilized, they came out. And to me, it was so hopeful. It was inspirational. I didn't need to know anybody. I truly didn't know a soul. I went to multiple ones whenever I possibly could, but it was my experience. And I say this from knowing these extraordinary people in New Orleans, from the Pointe-Au-Chien Center, from my other friends, that not only helped me realize the significance of what was going on, this monumental period in history, but it enabled me to feel actually, I think, a great, I guess, an appreciation, a deep appreciation for how significant this moment was. So yes, now I feel it was inspirational. And it also for me was very, very hopeful. And there was a whole range of things that, from the very beginning of people just, coming together as a catalyst. I was able to watch it grow. And as I saw it, I'll give you a good example of it. It's not in one of my photographs, but there were protests, if you will, or rallies or expressions throughout basically almost every community within the community or region within Southern California. And so that would tell you that would be from Venice to Santa Monica to downtown Los Angeles to central Los Angeles. In multitudes and various different walks of life, people came together. There was something that I had never seen or understood, but it may sound trivial, but it really wasn't. And that was these surfers came together, right, at the beach in Santa Monica. And they got together and they formed this beautiful, utilizing their surfboards out in the water, in the ocean, something that spelled out BLM, Black Lives Matter. And with that, I understood, all right, so this is very hopeful. They get it, right? And it was just beautiful. It was the most spontaneous thing that I'd ever seen. It wasn't something that you expected. It was very reassuring to me to see that, to understand that, and particularly so grateful to the people of New Orleans for having, well, if you will, reached out, allowed me to participate in their culture. And so, to see this going on with the range and the depth in another part of the country, which in some ways was kind of callous, and something like this didn't happen easily there. It made me very hopeful.
Thank you very much.
You said that the healing process can occur. Yes, I do believe it can now. So.
Oh, no problem at all. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have the same question for Itshanapa. How can healing start?
Oh, well, earlier I jumped into that question when you even asked me if it was possible. I'm so excited about it right now because of the good things that are going on. Like what was mentioned earlier, this is the only time we're ever going to say that we lived 10, 10, 20, 20. Like there's miracles all around us. All we have to do is notice. All we have to do in the midst of our own confusion is notice the miracles that are all around us. Yes, everything that Christine is saying and everything that Carol is saying is really right on, right on. But that's not my work. The work that they're speaking about, that's not my work. That's not my work. I don't have to listen to trauma anymore. I have enough experiences of my own. How can I dig up those deep feelings and be accountable for holding on to them for as long as I have? That's hard for people that have been oppressed to hear, but it's very important for the healing, is to notice the healing and let it go. Now, when we notice the healing, unfortunately, that means that we have to be accountable for what it is in our bodies that made us say, oh, this is a disease. Oh, this is a discomfort. Oh, this is not right. For instance, finances. For instance, poor educational choices, or just stagnation or hopelessness. We know that that's because of the byproduct of supposed oppression. But when we're living a self-actualized life, we have to say, hey, there has to be tools out there for us. And if we can Google what Meg the Stallion does, we can Google where our therapist is. We can Google where the next yoga meetup is. We can call a trusted friend instead of the friend that usually gossips with us. We can find a mentor. We can go for a walk in City Park. I have not been to New Orleans during COVID, and one of the things that I truly miss is being able to walk through City Park and literally pick elderberry and jasmine from the foliage. Okay, these are resources that are there for us. Up in St. Louis, all of the medians have lavender. That is a calming plant. We talk about elderberry in New Orleans in City Park. That heals our immune system. Everyone in New Orleans that's listening needs to go find the elderberry and save it. And if you don't want it, ship it up the river. We need it. We need it because it's essential to our healing for us to be aware of the resources we already have. I'm going to say it again. It's essential in our healing to really know and understand and be aware of the resources we already have. Our grandmas didn't make it to grandmas by being a fool. Okay. And so that means we have to have a strong sense of awareness. We have to be very accountable within ourselves. And we have to do what? We have to say, hey, we do need help. And do that from a non-egotistical place. When we say, oh, we need help, that doesn't mean that our egos should be upset at the fact that we need help. That means that we should humble ourselves and that we should really say, this isn't our fault. A system is attacking me right now, and I've survived this far. Surely there's someone out here to help me keep going. It's not, we didn't choose this, Earlier, Carol mentioned something about the Constitution and the amendments. And, I have a big problems with the women's suffrage because they forgot the all. The women's suffrage movement forgot the all. The hour was an implication of the racism. Okay, when Black women were not a part of the women's suffrage movement, and Phyllis Wheatley let us know that very well. And so with us knowing that, even if we know that we're not a part of that hour, we're a part of a larger hour that cannot be denied. Okay. So sure, their hour wasn't talking about me, but hey, they were talking about me too, because I'm taking that too. That's a part of me, So even if they don't validate what I have as a woman, I validate that. I celebrate me. I'm rejoicing regardless. And then I want to say something else about the social injustice and the social unrest. And I also want to go through a few books about it. I moved myself earlier during our talk because I wanted to get closer to my library. And one thing I want to say is when you're in first grade and you have to stand in line and the child behind you, the student friend behind you, or the bully behind you steps on your toe, your job is to say, ouch, you stepped on my toe, you hurt my toe, please don't do it again. From there, the bully or the person who stepped on your toe, you're going to know who that person is off tops. A good-hearted, well-intended person is going to say, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to step on your toe. I'll make sure to give you space so I don't hurt you again. And you stand there, and then you go on in line as your teacher proceeds. A person in the classroom that doesn't care about you, and you say, ouch, you stepped on my toe, please don't do it again. They're going to say, forget your toe, I don't care. And they're going to continue to crowd your space. It's your job at that point to get away from the bully. It's your job at that point to truly see that person for who they're showing you to be. You're not going to sit there and get your foot stepped on for the third time. No, you're going to do something to empower yourself. you're going to do something. Hey, some people like to tell the teacher. I grew up in a household and not be a tattletale. So some people are going to push the bully back. I don't always suggest that either, but there has to be a resistance. There has to be somewhere where you say, no, I'm not going to allow my foot to get stepped on anymore. And for some of us, because we've wanted the glitter, we've wanted the money, we've wanted the capitalism, we've wanted the social credit, then we say, oh, it's okay if they step on my toe a little bit. No. If they stepped on your toe once, they'll probably do it again unless you stop them. And if you've already told them and they don't care, do not play with them anymore. Get somewhere else in line. Period. And I'm not saying that segregation is the way, but what I am saying is that we have to say, no, my toe, not just Black Lives Matter, my whole toe is valuable. Does that make sense to you all?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so I'm going to go through a few books. You might not be able to see them because of my background, but I will read them aloud. One book that I would suggest for everyone is The Education of Blacks in the South between 1860 through 1935 by James D. Anderson. That talks about the educational oppression that we as Black people had to overcome, because we're not oppressed. We are overcoming. We're overcoming. We're constantly evolving. Okay. And so one of these books shows the foundation of attempted oppression, and it tells you how that affected some of us in the educational light. Then we have good old George Orwell's Animal Farm. Let's take it all the way back. You know, we're too quick to trust the anti-pragmatic. Okay, a lot of us, I'm not going to talk too much about politics, but we're quick to choose the lesser of the two evils. That too comes with a price. We all need to do our work about that. There are some people running for office whose family ties are attached to Eldridge Cleaver's death. Okay, you know, and we're constantly choosing the lesser of two evils. But guess what? When we graduate from first grade to second grade, that second grade teacher is expecting us to know the information, the material from first grade. If we got a C in the class, that means we need to go back to our test and find out the right answers to the problems we got wrong. Animal Farm. Okay, getting to yes. The Power of Negotiation. This book is by Roger Fisher and William Ury. I was in a fellowship in St. Louis called the Community Arts Training Institute. At the time that I was in that program, this was one of our books that we had to read. And getting to yes is a negotiation tactic so that everyone wins. We want to come out of this pandemic that everyone is healed at some degree, that everyone wins, not just me, you know? Then we're going to get into Allison Saar's Body Politics. That's Allison Saar's Body Politics. That book is all about the sculptures of Allison Saar and how her personal narrative, her ancestral narrative, and her sculptural aesthetic shows us the kind of hardened reality that we as Black women and Black people have been experiencing through generations, through our culture and the likes. Then for those of us who love Judy Chicago, I want to remind folks of The Birth Project. The Birth Project, you know, a part of all of this is because we're not honoring women. This is not going to stop until we honor our mothers. Stop being resentful at our mothers. Realize that every time that a mother gives birth, she's laying her life on the line and she's sacrificing her life just like Jesus, okay? And until we understand that, and we understand that birth is not a disease, but a productive and evolving process for humanity, all of this is going to continue. And I love my mother and I love my mother's mother. And even when they made mistakes, I'm so thankful that they sacrificed their life for me to live. And so I hope that more people can start to really unpack that in their own lives, whether they're male-bodied, female bodied, trans, or whatever the case may be, because birthing mothers are under attack. Black birthing mothers are under attack. And Judy Chicago reminds us beautifully about how wonderful birth is and about how we've been birthing civilization from beginning. She's a wonderful ally. Here's another book, Dispersing Power. I love it. Here I go. Social movements and as anti-state forces. Okay, this is by Raul Zabecki, and I think that this is important. This is about a case study in Bolivia, but we can apply it to this time. Now, coming of age in Mississippi. Thankfully, I had family members. I care gave for the matriarch of my family, my Haynes family, that was from Polk and Natchez, Mississippi. So I got to hear their culturally rich stories. I got to write from a very young age from them. I got to learn how to use a farmer's almanac from them. I got to learn how to use an ephemeris from them. And I got to learn from their pain. I had the opportunity and the blessing to learn from their pain, so I don't make the wrong choices with my own children. So Coming of Age in Mississippi is a classic. I do think it's important for both Black and white folks to read that. Now we're going to Ideas and Ideologies, Intellectuals and Revolution. There's so much pontification going on right now in society, and we need to stop talking. We need to stop talking. We need to have Zoom meditation. We need to have collective moments of silence for the people that we have to say their name. I'm in St. Louis, so of course Mike Brown is on the forefront, but I have family that has been hurt by this society, that has been hurt by medical institutions. I've been hurt by medical institutions. You know, I've been accused of crimes that I've not committed. So we have to say our own names as much as we have to say the names of people who've already passed. We have to remember what we've been through and stop pontificating in theory and hold on fast to the experiences that we've already learned from. So this book, I would strongly suggest, is really about socialism. I know everyone's not a socialist. However, you need to know about the different forms of government, even if you still choose to want to be a capitalist or in this democracy. There's two more I want to go through. This is by Peter F. Drucker. It is called Post-Capitalist Society. And it's just talking about what it could potentially look like in a post-capitalist society. And then this is one of my favorites. It is Enough is Enough. Oh, it's not gonna let you all see it. Oh, I'll read it to you out loud. Enough is Enough, How to Organize a Successful Campaign for Change. And in parentheses, it says, The Hellraiser's Guide to Community Activism. And it gives direct tactics for anybody that they can do from home out to the big world. Everyone's an activist because everyone is active. What are you activating? And that's the real question here. So I just want everyone to know that healing begins with starting to do something and starting to claim who you really are and really know thyself. And without doing those things, of course, healing can't begin. But if you know who you are and you know where you're going and you know what you feel and you know that your experiences are real, you're going to make it.
Thank you very much, Itshanapa. You gave me a list. Actually, I've read a few of those, and I have a few more that I will be reading, so thank you. The same question is going to go to Karel Sloane-Boekbinder is, how can healing start?
Yay. Well, she just made some amazing points.
Yes.
Yeah, because I have a quote that I attempt to live by Alice Walker. The quickest way we give up power is by thinking we don't have any. Everybody's got power. And now we've got this amazing reading list. And I'm going to ask if you wouldn't mind, Itshanapa, if you could email me that, because I want to put that on I want to share that out on our Facebook. So not right this second, but I mean, in the next few days, if you can, because our goal is to make these into YouTube videos and also put them up on the exhibit itself. So if you wouldn't mind, like typing it out, give me the title and the author, because I want us to be able to share and continue to share it out. I'm also interested myself in reading some of those books. So I'm so grateful that you said that. I'm also grateful that you talked about plants And even in your biography about, I'm a Reiki practitioner also. I'm a Reiki practitioner, 2nd degree. And I used to be a reflexologist. And I know like about this much of herbs, but I want to learn more, especially now that I know I'm Mohegan. I really want to learn more about plants and how to use them to help others heal. I think healing begins with a lot of what both Christine and Itshanapa just said. And I also think it begins by using whatever resource you have at your disposal to help. And I'll give a personal example. Well, beginning with Dondara dos Santos. Dondara dos Santos was a Brazilian trans woman who was murdered by like about, I think it was 5 people. And they videotaped her murder. And a human rights group got a hold of the videotape because after they murdered her, they put it up on social media, and the human rights group used it to identify the perpetrators, and they were brought to justice. They were tried, convicted, and put in jail because of this video. But I referenced Dondara dos Santos because when we think about diversity, we also need to think about non-binary people. We need to think about the LGBTQAI community because they are often left out of discussions about healing and the need for understanding and the need to be quiet and just listen to them. I have a project I've been working on for 4 years called Postcards from Over the Edge. And it's about the crime against nature law in Louisiana that exists, that unjustly criminalizes LGBTQAI people, but it also targets women of color, Black women in particular. And it has ever since it was made into a law in 1805. And I reference this because I'm a white presenting person. And the first time I ever submitted a grant for it, we were given the comments back and didn't get the grant. It didn't get that grant. One of the comments was, "Who does this white woman think she is?" And I thought, wow, this person didn't read the narrative. They're so wounded. I'm assuming they were a person of color. They are so wounded that they did not read the narrative, because the narrative was never about me benefiting. I've never taken a penny from the project. In fact, I put a lot of my own money into it, and I'm making a personal commitment because this came up recently. What if we make beaucoup money? If we make beaucoup money, I'm going to donate my portion to the House of Tulip, which is a local organization in New Orleans that's helping homeless. It's trying to help alleviate. It's the first shelter of its kind for LGBTQAI folks. And so that's what I will do with it. And I'm saying all this to say that if you are a white presenting person, there is something you can do to help somebody else. You can make a space for others to be heard and seen, for them to tell their stories the way they want them to be told, so that everybody else can hear them. Right. And the cool thing about this project, 2 things that have happened. One is that we were invited. I didn't ask. We were invited to perform in Newcomb Art Museum when they had the Empire exhibit in there. And we were performing with pieces from Storyville. We were using Lulu White's actual furniture. And our character, the actor who portrayed Lulu White, Valentine Pierce, was interacting. The Lulu White's actual desk was her desk. And we were doing this, and we got a few articles, and the 2 things that happened, that one of them was one of the women in the project, Kineen Maafa, said, "This is the first time that mainstream society has ever seen us. It's the first time that anybody's ever heard us that wasn't part of the trans activist community." And that was the first thing. The second thing was that now what's going on is that Operation Restoration and Wendy Cooper and Kineen Maafa and a few others have started an organization called Cans Can't Stand, so that we can completely eliminate the law, get it off the books, because it shouldn't be there. It's discriminatory and horribly, horribly prejudiced and abusive. So healing begins when we make a space for it to happen. When we do what Itshanapa suggested, which is self-check and listen and figure out, like, you know, where is healing happen and how can I make more of it happen? And how can I use these amazing books to help me, or the things that are right out in my backyard? Every plant in the world, including the really horrible ones like nightshade, right? Small quantities of nightshade can be made into heart medication. Foxglove, which is also incredibly toxic, is made into digitalis, right? Every single plant has a healing property. We just need to know how to use it. And there's books, internet galore. Google it. If you don't know what it is, Google it and listen to people.
I have a question regarding the work that you submitted because they've had a focus on botanical for healing. Can you elaborate as far as the connection of your work and how that connects with botanical and healing?
Yeah. So I have a whole series that I'm doing called Botanicals. It's the masculine form of beautiful, beau. In French, it would be belle if it was female. But it's also beau as in collective. So beautiful. And then a botanical is a healing plant. And they're portraits of African American women. Some of them are women that I know personally, like the one in the exhibit right now. I've actually made two. She doesn't know this. She knows one I made of her. Her name is Jena Clay, and she's one of my sisters in life. She's African American, and she inspired the blue portrait that is in the exhibit when you go in the virtual exhibit. I use repurposed canvas, and I repurpose it either one of two ways. I either go to the thrift store and actually buy a piece of canvas that's got somebody else's art on it that is of European, that looks like European iconography. And then I add a portrait of an African American or African. Sometimes I use actual women from Africa in the portrait. And I've started using words. So in the exhibit, what's in the exhibit right now, the one that has Drena's portrait in it has the preamble of the Constitution. That's what's written on the leaves. And the one of the woman from Africa has the Emancipation Proclamation on the right side. That's what's written in there. And they are meant to be calling of healing. So I am going to become more purposeful with the plants that I use, because so far I've only been using ones that I make good monoprints. It's been like a technical or more like a mechanical choice. Misbeliefs, otherwise known as loquat or Japanese plums, make great monoprints because the leaves are really sturdy and they've got really great vines and stuff in them. But my commitment to these pieces is that I'm going to begin using things like juniper or other plants that I know for sure are medicinal. Another reason why they're meant to be healing metaphors is they contain iconography that is African and European. The butterflies that are in they're not in the work right now that's in the exhibit, but in some other pieces that I've made, the butterflies are actually made by a European woman. Her name was Maria Isabella Marion. She was Dutch, and she's considered the mother of entomology, the study of insects. She loved to paint butterflies, and she painted them in great detail at a time when science thought that bugs just came out of dead things. They had no idea how bugs started or grew or any of that stuff. And so she published books while she was alive, and then she died impoverished, and nobody knew about her for a couple hundred years. And then there's been this big resurgence of her and her work because it was really the beginning of the study of bugs and insects. And so her butterflies are throughout the work. The portraits are African American women. I'm a huge admirer of Delita Martin. Her work is just amazing. I could just sit and look at her stuff all day. Stella Jones, a local gallery in New Orleans, has had a couple of her exhibits. I have her book now. My husband bought it for me. And so I'm just like in awe of the work that she makes. And she's just started including plant imagery in her work. Or in the Shadows in the Garden was her most recent exhibit, and it has plants. And she's really the one that got me doing portraiture, because I didn't used to do portraiture at all. And then people are interested in seeing people. When we look at a work, we want to see a human, right? And so to me, if I'm going to show what is beautiful, to me, what is beautiful are African American women. They're incredibly resilient. They have incredible amounts of fortitude. They have lived through stuff that would make other people fall and not be able to get back up again. And so I have great reverence for many women of well, African American women and also Native American women too. Native American women, they were brutalized because they were often the leaders. When the colonists got here, they would not speak to the people who were actually leading the Native American bands that they were interacting with. They would only talk to the men, and often the men were not the leaders unless you got out to the Plains Native Americans. The Plains had male leaders like the Apache, and but like a lot of the tribes that were on the East Coast did not have male leaders, they have female leaders. So the guy that didn't even have the power was negotiating with the colonizer. And so, yeah, I want to bring in, I haven't done any portraits yet with Native American women, but I want to start doing that too. So, yeah.
Ooh, thank you. I just want to touch on something else that you mentioned as far as when you presented and the individuals basically said, who does this white woman think she is? How do you balance trying to help and navigate as far as trying to use whatever resources you have to assist, but at the same time finding that resistance?
Well, I really believe that anybody that reacts like that is wounded. And they've been wounded by a person who is white presenting, probably a whole bunch of white presenting people. So they're coming from a place of pain. And I would like, I mean, when I encounter that, I try to be mindful of it. And I often just shut my mouth and let them speak because, you know, they're hurt, they're wounded, and they may not even understand that that's what's going on when they're speaking those things, right? They may not even understand that that's what is, you know, and that it's a block for them, that they don't even, may not even know that, because you can't heal something unless it manifests. Unless you can see it and look at it, you cannot heal it. So I try to assess. Now I get frustrated because I'm writing grants for a whole bunch of people. I've got a core group. I have 3 trans women that are part of my core group of developers, as well as like I have another one of the actors I mentioned, Valentine is one of the core writers. Kaneen is one of the core writers. Jasmine Davis is another core writer. India McDougall is a core writer. Rashawn May is our amazing, fabulous director, right? So I'm trying to get money to pay these people. And so, yeah, I get frustrated because but that's what I meant. It's like, this person didn't read the narrative. They did not read the narrative. If their response, if their whole comment about my grant is that, they didn't read the narrative. And I know why they didn't read the narrative, because they've encountered a whole bunch of people that look like this that never heard them, that never listened to them, that degraded them, that did horrible stuff to them, maybe even physical horrible stuff. And I mean, you know, that's why the block is there. So I navigate the best I can. I also, I don't think faith is blind. I think faith is stuff that you can't see. I really believe that. And I think about, there's a biblical thing, it's in Matthew. Everybody knows about Jesus walking on water, but a lot of people forget that Peter walked on water too, in the middle of the storm. Because Jesus said, okay, come to me then. If you're, you know, come, you can do this too. And Peter got out and he was walking, and then he started freaking out. And that's when he went under the water, and Jesus said, oh God, and pulled him out. He didn't let him drown. He pulled him out of the water. And then he said, you know, you were doing it. Your own doubt, your own fear is what made you drown. It wasn't me. It was you, right? So I try to like keep that in mind as well, because that's my biggest thing is when I become afraid, I start drowning. Like, and I need Jesus. Come help me, get me out of the water. And Jesus says, you know, going back to Itshanapa, who is a healer, practicing healer, the Bible says, Jesus said, I have healed the sick. I have driven out demons. You can do this too. And you can even do more than I did. If you only claim your power, if you only claim your power, you can do this. And so that's part of what we're called to do. We are called to claim our power. We are called to understand that the quickest way we give it up is by thinking we don't have any power at all. And then we educate ourselves with all those wonderful books.
Thank you very much, Carol Sloan.
That's right.
Also, I'm now going to look at some comments from Facebook world. An old friend of mine's, Jeffrey Dobbs, said, hey, John. Hey, Jeff, hope all is all right, all is well. And the other person is Villarreau, said, Ashe. Thank you, Villarreau, Jeffrey, and Maricel. And hopefully everybody else just please comment. And we appreciate your watching this discussion. So now I'm going to go to the third question, which is going to go to Christine Bro. What does healing look like to you?
Oh, that's an incredible question. For me, starting, it's a vision, and what I generally see is a reaching out, a cross section where basically people come together. It's hands. It's uh, a way to be able to touch without necessarily touching, of visualizing that, and then internalizing it on the inside. It looks like that, and it also is contradicted. Now, I'm also referring back to Itshanapa, because her work involves touching. In other words, one way of healing is to be able to touch. And it's really an incredible concept, because you can physically touch, and that has, basically real tangible benefits in terms of healing. But you can also touch emotionally and psychologically. And I say that now because we're in the area of COVID. We're stuck in this thing where we really have to be very careful. Now, at least, touching is much more, it's something that one does with reserve, I guess, as opposed to, the way that we used to be, at least hang out here in New Orleans, which was everybody, you'd come up and you give them a hug and you'd say, how are you doing? And, and people still do, with their masks on. But I'm just saying, there's a certain reserve when it comes to social distancing. So sort of the whole idea of touching, is, but it is crucial, because we're also, craving the touching, craving the ability to be able to go up and reach out and physically touch one another. And I think that's also important to the healing process, in terms of basically generational, interracial, that touching, just something as very basic and simple as that, because it means that it brings us within close proximity to each other. And there is this paradox, because we're in a time where we're being told the opposite, which is you want to stay far away, not far away, but socially distance yourself. And I've noticed that. It's much more difficult to have encounters, with strange people, or people that you might want to talk to, because there's a sort of a reserve, almost to the point where, at least early on in the pandemic, it almost felt like a paranoia. Don't get close to me. I don't want you close to me. Even people that you knew, it's like, with their masks on, right? And I think that has to have an impact. So it struck me when Itshanapa was talking about that how important that touching, that tactile is in terms of our being able to relate to one another. And it's something probably we'll have to go back and start working on again when this is over. And we can now, we just do it, manifest in a different way. So I found that to be really, really helpful. And also her library, which I thought, I'm looking forward to reading it. Some of it I have never heard of before. And I really want to, and I love books. It's so, I look forward to being able to have the time to be able to read them. I appreciate everything that everybody has said as far as, so how do we begin that healing process? And I think the other part of it is it's different for everybody. I think you have to take that into mind. I think, sometimes sitting down and doing a piece of artwork will enable you to drop the malaise, let the anxiety, the distancing just sort of fade away, so that we can get back to the core. And in that core is there's a certain sense of I think, centering, feeling at one, feeling a greater part of this universal collective. There isn't so much you can find it in meditation too. You know, the aftermath of meditation or being together and talking in sort of a meditative state is healing. We shed the differences, so to speak, and find the commonality. And in that, there's a sense of peace and connectedness. And hearing this inner voice, going back maybe and connecting with the ancestors and saying they're here, you know, knowing that even if it's just virtual, you know, you're there, I'm with you, you're with me. And we're happen to be expressing it in the context of our artwork right now. And feeling a great deal of, as you said, we're a great deal of gratitude because we're activating our own internal resources, which is the point, I guess, that you made about we have the resources inside of us. And it is one very strong, poignant issue that we have had to address during the COVID, which is, you know, seeking these internal, very strong parts of ourselves that enable us to deal with the most basic instincts of the need to survive in a time where it feels like there's a lot of stuff pushing against us, if that makes sense. So I guess my next way of thinking that problem through is, if I'm feeling pushed like that, if I feel that the air is getting heavy, so to speak, right? And I'm thinking about my own survival, I want to release that additional conflict that I would carry around by looking at other folks in terms of race, because underneath it, I know that they're going through, they have to be feeling some fear. And I feel deeply grieved that so much has been placed on communities of color, even though I know people all over are feeling this basic threat to their survival. So, you know, it comes with empathy and compassion that enables me to be able to listen at a more deep level. The fact that we are really, it's sort of like an existential threat. We have our own individual concerns, questions, deep ones about, you know, are we going to survive as individuals? And then also, I think the planet is a big thing for me, which is why I really loved what you were hearing about, Carol, and that is sort of this transition of your work. I think about that all the time. Some part of my thought is always translated into green, into climate change, if you will, into that other hugely existential, if you want to call it that, threat. And certainly all of us sitting here down in the Gulf of Mexico know that all too well. And so, you know, the strength and the lessons that we learned from dealing with COVID and having empathy for other people's trauma, right? Hopefully will give us the strengths we need to change our behaviors around to better deal with the climate crisis. I mean, we really are undergoing, you know, major crisis right now. And so, you know, I loved what y'all said too, which was, you know, you find that part of yourself inside that gives you the strength rather than the weakness, you know, and you lean on that. And I guess one of the ways that I deal with the, you know, the racial thing, I see it inside of myself as being, it's a, and I would say this, I'll tell you something that was important. I was involved with the takedown of the Confederate monument here in the front line of it and photographing it. And I had never really confronted, basically, you know, the major white supremacists, major Nazis, major Ku Klux Klan in full regalia, right? which I seized the moment to photograph. Another story. But during that period of time, moments, it was fairly fleeting, thank God. But it was a major just confrontation, something that you would see similar to what played out in, in Charlottesville. Not as ugly, but really, really ugly, And I thought to myself, I saw this one young guy, and he was wearing a Klan outfit, full Klan regalia. And I said to him, I said, why are you carrying this burden of hatred, right, in your heart? Why would any mother ever want to teach their child that embracing anything to focus on differences rather than our commonality? It seems like it doesn't mean that you don't recognize their distinctions and that we have differences and that we respect them and appreciate them, but to carry that piece of hatred around inside of you, it's not only ball and chain, it's unnecessary, and we have to absolutely condemn it and get rid of it, let it go.
Yes, indeed. We could probably be talking for another hour, and
Right. I'd love to hear what you have to say about it too. You're gonna have to talk about it,
Well, we have about 10 minutes left. I'm trying to see how many questions we could get in. It has been emotional, it's been informative, and I've really been appreciating this. So let me get to Itshanapa with the same question: is what does healing look like to you?
Healing for me looks like a full breath with no pain, no tension, and no static in my body. And to achieve that, I must, I dropped the phone about to show y'all. Okay, so to achieve that, give me one moment. Comfortable again. There we go. To achieve that, I have to make sure that all of the tension in my neck is relaxed, that my chest is fully pumping with blood in my heartbeat, and that my stomach is fully let loose, and I don't care what anyone thinks about my belly, and that my hips are firmly grounded into my seat, and that my toes are outstretched but comfortably lagging. So for me, healing looks like a lot of work, because when I have these experiences in my life of pain, of trauma, of collective trauma, I might hold my breath. Okay? It weakens the lungs. It stops us from grieving. It stops us from fully breathing. And wherever else in our bodies where we might feel tension, it's going to heighten it. So when we fully breathe, we're fully sitting in our core, as Christine mentioned. Sometimes we might have an ache in our knee, and we know, hey, we aren't so comfortable with change. Where did this knee ache come from? We might have an ache in our foot, and it might be from not moving forward at a different time in our life. And it's our jobs to not worry about the past in that way, but really deepen the breath, push through the pain in our bodies, push through the sensation where we thought the pain was when we remembered the pain, and then fully let ourselves go. And in that moment, when we're fully grounded and all of our muscles are released, and our breath and our bellies are fully loose, and our shoulders hold no tension, and our throats are reverberating a very fine feeling, and there's no headache or eye strain, then we know that we're healed. Now, we might only be able to keep that for maybe 5 seconds or 5 minutes, or some of us have the luxury for getting there for an hour or two a day. But even if it's for a millisecond, our bodies remember that feeling, and we can tap into that feeling whenever we need to get us back to a full breath. It's important for us to keep breathing. It's important for us to have these experiences around us, but not internalize them. It's important for us to let go of our egos. You know, I've been an activist my entire life. I thought I have the same birthday as Alice Walker. And so I thought, you know, I'm an Aquarian. There's Huey Newton. There's Rosa Parks. I thought it was my civic astrological duty to be at the front lines of every movement. I remember Take 'em Down NOLA. I remember that being one of the monumental moments in my life, and what a wonderful outcome that experience has given the rest of the world, because now, no matter what city I'm in, I don't have to look at a terrorist anymore. My daughters do not have to look at a terrorist anymore. And what an honor to be able to walk through, even during the Maafa walk, and be a part of taking that down, you know, being a part of the collective spirit to chant that down, and all the things that we did to get those statues removed. Even the small part that people played, and they might not have known the impact. They might have been in the crowd and just finding out. They might have just had the aha moment. That work rippled throughout the entire country, the same way that people are rebelling against the attack of Black people's lives. And so I trust that this is just going to continue, and that we're able to be washed clean, and that those of us that are ready have learned how to fully breathe in our power through the discomfort. We're not holding on to the discomfort in our bodies anymore. And we're able to claim a new reality, a reality that we might have dreamed of, a reality that we might not have heard of since Sesame Street. A reality, you know, I'm an 80s kid, so She-Ra, you know, She-Ra changed my life. Rainbow Bright, you know. So we still have that in our DNA. And we still have all of the joy in our DNA, and that can push the pain through. But we can't hold on to the pain and then expect the healing to evolve, to arise, and to die. We can't hold on to it. We can't you know, tap back into that old pain when we're in the midst of joy or rejoicing or celebration. If I were in New Orleans right now, I would be celebrating, because look at Take 'em Down NOLA. Look how that changed the world. Look how that told everyone else enough is enough, even looking at the statues. I mean, how powerful is that? Here I'm in St. Louis. I've been a strong part of the activist community in St. Louis my entire adult life. And you would be, it's people that would have never been able to afford homes have homes. I have a home. The people in that I never thought would be major artists are in the Smithsonian. You know, there's more gardens, there's more resources, there's more people living their passion all up and down the river, even in small towns, you know, even like when I traveled through the South, you see more art now. You see more art. People got more reasons to say things. And all of this is healing. That's the evidence. This is the trickle down evidence of the healing. Now, another thing that I want to say is that I touched a lot about working with the body. If you're at home alone, if you're an elder, if you do not have an ability to be able to be touched by others, maybe you have poor nerves, or you don't have a loving person in your life to touch. Listen, do this for 30 seconds a day, and it'll support the blood flow of your brain. And just do light butterfly touches. Rub the back of your neck. Rub the bottom of your feet. I'm rubbing mine now. Rub the bottom of your feet. Get your inner energy at such a rate that you're inspired. And maybe you're just inspired to do something different. Maybe you're not ready to do jumping jacks. That's just fine. But it doesn't have to be from someone else. You can touch yourself. It's just fine. And
I'm gonna have. I do apologize because we only have a minute left. I want to make sure that Carol Sloan answers the same question. Also,
may I make one more statement?
Okay,
I just really want us to remember everything that I said, but most importantly, that civilization began at the seat of humanity, which lived in sub-Saharan Africa, and that we are all African people. And the further away that we get away from that, the more trouble will continue. But remember that Lucy was found where? In the middle of Africa, and that no matter what you claim or whatever it is that you associate yourself with in the cultural world, the beginning of humanity began in Africa. That's all.
all right, Carol Sloan. I'm gonna let you answer the last questions. How do you know you're healing? And also, you could talk about the side by side.
Okay. um, well, I know that I'm healing when I have similar experiences like Itshanapa was describing. I grew up in a house that was full of, my main emotions were terror, and terror. That was one of the main emotions. And so I know I am healing when I'm able to breathe and I'm not tensed up. And when love happens, and I'm holding this up because one of the things that's happening with my ancestor journey is that people are popping up in my life who know the culture, even if I don't. I have two dear friends who are Muslim, one of whom is from Pakistani. Her name is Zarina Ali, and she has a great little place called Royal Boutique. And then the little girl who gave me this heart, her mother's name is Charma Abdallah. And Charma Abdallah is, although she's from Saudi Arabia, she also has African heritage. She's Amazigh. She has ancestors that were from Ghana. And she is a Saudi Arabian Jew, like I am. And so, and her mother, her name is Tabala. Tabala said to me, "You are family. Your child and my grandson are brothers. And you are the sister that I could not give Charma." And that, I can't even describe, because my family was so broken, and it's happening. And I'm saying it to say that even if you don't believe, there's no possible way that could happen to you, that's a block. You're resisting. And you have every right to resist if you've lived through horrible, terrible stuff. Yeah, I could understand why you would want to resist. However, you also have to do what Itshanapa said earlier and own that your resistance is what is stopping you from healing. And as scary and as terrifying as it is, that once you begin to do that, things will happen to you that you could never have imagined that are about this. Oh, and side by side.
Thank you.
Yeah, so side by side is a membership level of Ashe. We've not been doing membership payment lately for side by side. This exhibit was open. We had an open call, although we did target our side by side artists like Itshanapa and like Christine Bro and Lisa Dubois. Gason himself is a side by side artist. And what we do as side by side artists is we provide opportunities for group exhibits. And we do this. We have discussions about the content of what is in the exhibit. And we engage our audience, the people that are present, because we want to hear from you. We want to know what you're thinking. If you have questions, we want to be able to have dialogue. And so if you visit the Ashe page, there is a place which says how you can support, and you can join and become a member. And then you can be part of exhibits. And the other thing I want to mention is our survey. We have a survey that goes with this exhibit, and we'll share out the link. We want you to visit the exhibits, and then we want to know what you think about it. And we want you to take a moment to really write down your reaction. And there's no wrong answer. Our very first artist talk, we had people on both sides. One person was like, "Oh yeah, healing's happening. It's happening all over." And the other person was like, "I don't think healing's possible. I don't think it's happening at all," right? There's no wrong answer. at all. It's about what your personal reaction is. And then we also want to know some logistical questions, because this is our first virtual exhibit ever. Did you ever come to Ashe and see the physical exhibits? What do you think about this virtual one? Should we keep doing it virtually? We really want to know your thoughts. So that's, I know we're over time, but that's side by side and the exhibit.
Well, thank you very much. I'm not sure if Morgan Malin's going to cut us off, or are we still have a few minutes?
So when y'all are ready to say your goodbyes, we'll close out.
Well, goodbye, everyone. Thank you for showing up. Thank you, Itshanapa, Christine, Bro, Karel, Sloane-Boekbinder. I really appreciate all you being here.
It was great meeting all you too.
Oh, yes. The conversation was just so much. We couldn't even go through all the questions. And I thank you for the list. I'm looking forward to the list from you, Itshanapa.
So, will next time, will we be able to hear back from you?
Oh, we're going to have more conversation next time. Today,
Okay.
it was about the artists. I was just hosting. So,
Okay, great.
so for the next one, we're all going to be conversing. It's going to be, I think we only have one artist that didn't show up for the artist talk. Symphony.
Yeah, Symphony Silv hasn't been able to come, so she's actually going to respond to questions first, just so that she has an opportunity to do what everybody else has done. And then Gason is going to give us a guiding question that everyone will respond to, because there's 10 of us all together, including Gason.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say thank you. I mean, you know, it was a very healing, all of you, each one of you, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a healing experience, you know.
Yay!
I appreciate it so much. So yeah, I look forward to seeing you all again really soon. Yeah.
Yes.
Same
Yes.
here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan Malin.